It's not official yet, but, man, the terms are out there. It's just a matter of calling it into the league office when they open up at 345 Park Avenue. Third-round draft pick next year. A flip-flop of late-round picks in 2027. Good God. Sixth-rounder goes to Dallas. Fifth-rounder goes back to Pittsburgh. George Pickens trades in black and gold for silver and blue.
Woo! Steelers and Cowboys doing business. Dak, man, I don't know. I don't remember any significant trades between the two organizations in the past, but we know there's great history
Preston
here.
Pearson. Preston Pearson.
Right.
Back in the 70s,
Right.
the Steelers were fully constituted of only players who had ever played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was easier to do without free agency. The Cowboys, every player on the roster had only ever played for the Cowboys, with the exception of one of the guys who had only ever played for the Steelers, running back Preston Pearson, who got traded at some point to the Cowboys. And there's always been this connection between the two. They met in the Super Bowl twice in the 70s, another time the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. And I've told this story before. My dad, the bookie, hated the Steelers because everybody in town bet with their hearts, and they bet on the Steelers. No matter what the spread was, he always needed the Steelers to fail to cover the spread. And he loved the Cowboys because everybody in town in the 70s hated the Cowboys, and they bet with their hearts against the Cowboys. So he was Cowboys fan, Steelers hater, and those two. So for me, the Cowboys and the Steelers will always have that kind of special connection. They don't play very often, but they're playing today. They're playing a different kind of game today. And it's a little bit of football Russian roulette for the Dallas Cowboys because I don't know, based on the history of some of these guys we've seen the Steelers trade away at the receiver position and what they do after they leave, I don't know what the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones are getting, Chris.
Hey, it's dicey. Yeah, like you said, it's Russian roulette. It could be a home run. It could be, wow, oh my gosh, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens are the best duo at receiver in football, and the Cowboys have become this crazy explosive offense, and Dak Prescott is hanging in the pocket and throwing bombs down the field, and this is awesome. Or, yeah, I could see the total opposite. We don't get a contract done. It's week 5. He's not getting the ball. They're 1-3, and he's spouting off, and it's going crazy. So I'll be interested. And like you brought up the history. All right. Antonio Brown, post-Pittsburgh. What would we...
Disaster.
Disaster? Yes.
Right? Frozen foot disaster.
Right. Frozen foot disaster that I would like to remember. I broke that story, which was hilarious. That was like maybe the only time in my life I broke a story like that. But yeah, he had a little run in Tampa where we went, okay, wow, that was good. But that ended up, not working out in totality.
Bare-chested disaster.
Bare-chested disaster. He did win a Super Bowl and catch a few passes, though, so it's not a total disaster.
Well, Tom Brady had a lot to do with that, even though he wasn't involved in the evaluation.
Definitely. And let's not forget he was in New England, too, for a few weeks as well before, after the Raiders' frozen foot thing. Deontay Johnson.
That's apparently in Belichick's book.
Is that?
Even though Robert Kraft isn't mentioned, there's apparently a discussion about that.
That's interesting. That's it. Chase Claypool, we just talked about before. Disaster once he left Pittsburgh. Deontay Johnson, after he left Pittsburgh. Say it with me. Disaster. And it still looks like it at this point. Mike Wallace is one guy where I go, it wasn't a disaster.
His numbers actually went up from his final year in Pittsburgh to his first year with the Miami Dolphins. He went up in total yards and catches in his first year in Miami.
Right. And then, his career kind of, slowly petered off from there, right?
He had a 1,000-yard season with the Ravens. That's the thing. It was he was better with his second team after the Steelers, like Antonio Brown. Disaster for the team that traded for him, worked out with two teams after that. But Wallace had his only 1,000-yard season after 2011 in 2016 as a member of the Baltimore Ravens.
Right, and I wouldn't classify any of that as a disaster, nor would I classify Mike Wallace in the stratosphere of the other guys that we've mentioned. Right? Am I wrong here? Mike Wallace wasn't a pain in the butt in Pittsburgh. He wasn't one of those guys, so I don't even think it's fair to...
He just didn't take the contract they offered.
That's right.
They went to him with a contract. He said no, so they gave it to Antonio Brown.
Right.
And they let him leave in free agency.
Right. So I don't think it's fair to him to put him in the group of these other guys here. But, yeah, like you said, it's Russian roulette with the Cowboys and how this plays out.
Well, they embrace it because, again, Jerry Jones is firmly committed to the idea that you want to be interesting, not necessarily successful on the field, and this makes them interesting. And it's got so many layers. We were trying to break them down earlier. How does the fact that George Pickens doesn't have a contract after this season play into the timeline where they're dragging their feet on Micah Parsons? And it's very easy to say to George Pickens, hey, sorry, we got to deal with this Parsons deal first. Well, when are you going to? Well, we'll get to it. And the next thing you know, you just get to the point where no deal gets done with George Pickens. They could also do a deal with him during the season. They could wait until whenever their bye week is going to be. We'll find out next Wednesday. See how he does through the first 5, 6, 7, 8 games. And then maybe during the bye week, you make a longer-term commitment if so far it's looking like it's not a disaster. So there's just a lot that goes into it. Yes, objectively on paper, it makes them better, but it introduces a host of challenges that I'm not sure they're ready for.
Yeah, exactly right. We're going to see. And that's where this contract thing and how that plays out, I think, is a big part of this. CeeDee Lamb, as we know, is the man. He's got 236 receptions over the last 2 seasons in the NFL. He has gotten the ball a lot. He's a guy that wants the ball a lot, right? And these are 2 guys that certainly have the confidence and the talent that think like, hey, you give me the ball, we're going to win. We just got to do that. So, yeah, it's just going to be all the personalities, the Micah situation, this contract situation, the pressure on Dak Prescott, the change of the coach from McCarthy to Schottenheimer just because we didn't want to give too many years to McCarthy, not necessarily because we think he did a bad job. I mean, yes, it's a reality TV show there in Dallas. But I will say they got some players on that roster, better players than I think people are giving them credit for, and they could make a little more waves in this league this year than I think people are expecting.
Well, people are expecting nothing.
Yes, right. You're right. They are
still waters.
Right, and I think
the Dallas Cowboys.
We got to warn them that it's better than that. Their roster's better than nothing or bottom of the barrel NFC. That's for sure.
Are you saying the G-men are going to finish in 4th place?
I am. I think is what I'm saying. Exactly right. Yeah. I mean, if you made me bet money, yes, I would bet that the Giants would end up in 4th place in the NFC East.
If Russ would have been working out and not at the Met Gala on Monday night, maybe the Giants would be in better.
Oh, you know what? Off of that too, you remember you said you were like, well, how many years does he get this running invitation? I believe I read that was his first time there, right? Which, I know, right? But I thought that's what I read. I could be wrong. And now it doesn't mean he was the first time he was invited, but that was the first time he was there, which I also want to go, wait, at the low point of his career, that's when he gets invited there? I don't know. So
I assumed he'd been, just because we've got a photo database where we get the pictures we use for our stories, and there's a lot of Russ dressed up out at some event photos.
Right.
A lot of them.
Right.
When you put in Russell Wilson's name. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.